All right, this is JP DeRoss, show number 199, one away from 200. One away from 200. Tonight is just me and Ralph. Ralph Velasco has been on the show 2 times before. I was looking at Ralph before we started, and exactly 1 year ago, we didn't plan this, but exactly 1 year, August 8th, 2016, you were on the last time.
That's incredible. That's unbelievable.
And then before that, let me scroll down because I've got it here on the webpage. Let's see if I can bring this up here. So 180. And then before that, well, we didn't quite time it quite perfect. Show number 138 on March 15, 2015. So we're getting you once a year. We need to keep that going.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I'm up for
it. Tonight I mentioned it's just you and I because Tim is traveling today. Inside the country, he and his family are making their bi-weekly trip to Disney. I joke, and if Tim sees this later, I know they make a lot of trips to Disney, but he and the family going to Disney. I believe they're taking a Disney cruise at some point in this process, which is fantastic also. We did the Disney cruise years ago when the kids were smaller, and if you're into cruising, it's not like kindergarten on the ocean. They do a good job of segregating families and kids and adults and have places for each, where if you're an adult and want to get away, you can get away and do that kind of stuff. But it still has a lot of opportunities for kids to get involved in things. So he's doing that. We'll skip next week so that Tim is back for show number 200. So we'll be back after that. But tonight we have Ralph coming back on. Ralph, like I mentioned, on those 2 other shows, we talked a little bit about travel photography. Tonight we're going to talk about traveling and photography, and traveling as far as not just going as a guest or a person being toured, but the person running the tour, and how you can do this. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I say anything wrong here, but you can do this for extra money, for part of your business, or for your business all together, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I've started a new part of my business called tourorganizertraining.com, where I'm teaching people how to organize and lead their own trips. And so this could be something that you do once a year, part-time, and I recommend that you start out slowly and not start doing 9 or 10 trips a year like I do, but like I did, build up slowly to that kind of a schedule.
Yeah. So just to bring us, for people maybe who have not seen you on the other 2 shows, which I'd recommend you go out and watch, bring us up to date on what it is you do, and a little bit about Ralph.
Sure. So I organize and lead tours around the world, and I call them cultural tours with a focus on photography. So photography is a part of our trips. I don't call them photo workshops. To me, work is a 4-letter word. We're there to have fun. So they're not super hardcore photo workshops. I don't even call them photo tours anymore. So photography is just a part of the trip, but it's about the cultural aspects of travel, the people, the food, architecture, photography, anything, music, dance, things like that. And so I've been doing that full time for about 9 years now. And so I was looking to expand my business, and I'm on the road 9 months out of the year leading these trips, scouting trips. And so I was looking for a way to expand my business, but I really just can't physically travel anymore. And so I decided that it's kind of funny, but what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to get in on the online courses, webinar type of training, but I started to think about it, and there's a dime a dozen photography online courses out there.
Right.
So there's so many out there. I didn't want to be just another one. And so I, was just thinking about, boy, what could I teach? What could I teach? And my mom's got this saying, and she says, you're looking for the horse you're riding on. And it means that the answer is right there in front of your nose. And so I'm like, if there's anything I know how to do, it's organize and lead tours. And so that's when I decided that I'm going to put together a free webinar and an online course series teaching people how to do that. And it's not just specifically how to lead photo tours, but any kind of trip, actually. So your listeners who obviously have an interest in photography may be interested in leading photo tours, and that's great. But if someone is looking to lead, maybe they're a travel blogger, travel writer, and they want to lead some writing workshops, or they're a yoga instructor, they want to put together a yoga retreat to India, anywhere. They have an interest in food. They consider themselves a foodie, and they want to organize a culinary tour to Tuscany or Provence, some other great food culture. That's what I'm teaching people is all the step by step how to put these trips together. Because people tell me that it looks like I'm on vacation all the time, and I can understand that. But and if it looks easy, it only means that I'm doing my job right. And so I think it probably does come off as it looks easy, because our trips just go without a hitch. And if I do say so myself, I think it's because of all the preparation and partnering with the right people in the location, and just being very detail oriented, which is what I'm pretty good at, and organizing. But I get to talk about travel, and just even when I'm back in the States, I don't have a home. I'm what's called location independent. So just means it's a nice way of saying homeless. But
well, if you travel 9 months out of the year, it's kind of tough to have a home. You pay somebody to upkeep it all year long while you're not even there.
Yeah, and I had an apartment in Southern California for 3-4 years while I was traveling like this, and I finally came to my senses and said, "Why am I paying rent there 12 months when I'm there for 2 weeks at a time?" So I said, I'm going to get rid of 80-90% of my stuff, and just kind of hit the road. And now I stay with family in the Chicago area when I'm in the U.S., which isn't often, and that allows me to travel where and whenever I want.
And we're looking at some of the photos from the previous 2 shows you were on. So we're playing those as we go. And you mentioned, one of the things you're doing now when you take people on tour, it is a photo tour, but it's not only a photo tour. It's not strictly that. You're doing a lot of cultural things while you're there, and a lot of free time for people too, right?
Right. So when I tell people about putting together their own trips, they have to think about what their niche is. Are they going to teach something? And I think we all have something that we can teach. If not, though, don't be afraid, because you can be just an aggregator of experts in the location. So let's say you enjoy food, you consider yourself a foodie, but you're not a chef. You don't have an expertise in that, but you could put together experts on food in the location. And so you would just be that aggregator or organizer of experts in the location. And then you get to travel for free if you price it right, and enjoy this hobby or this passion that you have while you're there. And so the idea is to really figure out what your niche is going to be, what kind of trip you're going to lead, what level of trip, the type of hotels that you're going to stay at, activities, things like that. So that's going to be really important when it comes to attracting the kind of people that you want to your trip. But my niche is, like I said, cultural tours with a focus on photography. We have 6 to 11 participants on our trip, so it's a nice small number. But it's still big enough that it allows me to spread the costs over a fair amount of people, so I can keep the cost down to each client. And we schedule about a half day scheduled activities, half day of free time. So it gives people an opportunity to go out and explore on their own, make their own experiences, and not feel like they have to be with the group 24/7.
How many days total is your average trip?
Anywhere from my Cuba trip, which I'm now coming up on my 17th trip to Cuba that I'm leading. That's a 7-day trip. And my other trips that are halfway around the world for us here in the North America are anywhere from 12 to 14 days typically. Okay. So, you don't want to go to India for 7 days.
Sure,
So
sure.
we try to maximize our time there. Same with other destinations, Cambodia, Vietnam, things like that.
Things where the travel is considerable from
Right.
here, from America.
Hmm.
Okay, so you've been very successful at your own tours and guiding people for years doing this stuff, and have a lot of repeat customers. So now you're wanting to offer your expertise for other people who may want to do some of this stuff too. And I know I missed the webinar today. Sorry, couldn't make the webinar today, but you're doing a webinar to introduce people to it, and then more training down the road. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so it starts with a free webinar that we do live, and the next one is August 17th. I'm not sure when the show comes out after you release it, but I know we're live right now.
Yeah.
But August 17th at 8 p.m. Central Time in the U.S., we are doing another live webinar. But that starts out. It's maybe an hour and a half, and I talk about my background and why I'm qualified to do this, how I came up with the idea and everything, and but then it leads into an online course. So it's made up of 7 different modules. Those are the 7 steps that I've come up with for organizing and leading a trip, and then each module is broken down into 4 or 5 lessons that people can then learn and drill down into each of these areas of these steps that I've created, and so people can learn how to do this step by step for whatever kind of trip they're looking to lead.
Okay, and I showed the web page where you can go and sign up for the webinar right here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have the show notes, the links in the show notes. But I'll
Great.
also put it here in chat. Let's see, put it there and put it here. And then also we showed your photo enrichment website. So the
Right.
first one, the tour is tourorganizertraining.com.
It's tourorganizertraining.com. And if you go there, then you can get this free bonus that I have. It's a list of trips that you can organize and lead. So it's sometimes people are thinking, well, what do I know? I don't have any ideas. So this is meant to spark. I've got maybe 20 or 25 different ideas for tours. So if they register for our list, then they will get that as a special bonus. But if you go to tourorganizertraining.com/free-webinar, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, that goes right to the page where you can actually sign up for the webinar itself, which again is August 17th live. And there I go through and talk about all these steps that I was mentioning. But it's something I'm really excited about because I love to teach, and it's just another area of travel that I could teach. And I actually got into I was a traveler first and a photographer second, for sure. And so since I was probably 15, 16 years old and started traveling quite extensively internationally, I just thinking, how could I make a living from travel? And I just thought, especially at that time, way before the internet, I think it was before the wheel too, that it was like becoming a rock star. To actually make a living from travel was virtually impossible. And so now today, with the internet and social media and the way we can connect with people around the world, these webinars are just out there 24/7. It's just incredible the amount, Facebook ads, how you can get in front of people that are interested in travel and maybe wanting to sign up for your trips. So I'm really excited about that part of it. And I can do this from anywhere in the world, which, I do my business now. I pretty much have a laptop and that's it. And if I've got an internet connection, I'm in business. So that's fun. And that's what I want to teach people to do, to live this life of being on the road if they want, travel, and it's work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell anyone that it's free money or that you're going to make $1 million your first year, but I can't think of a more fun type of business.
So you do it full time, but could someone do this? part-time. I know some photographers in their slow season, whatever season that may be, depends on what genre you're in, may do workshops and stuff to supplement that income during those slower times. Could a photographer say, what I'm going to do is these months out of the year, or whatever, I'm going to start doing something like this where I'm going to do a tour to whatever part of the country and do that in place of my workshops and have it focused on whatever, focused on photography, imagine anytime you travel, there's going to be some photography involved.
Yeah.
Most people are going to bring something to take photos with, but like you said, it could be focused on other things, culture, food, whatever it is you want to focus on. Could someone do this part-time?
Oh, for sure. And I would highly recommend that they start out part-time. I wouldn't recommend that you hit the road for 9 months a year, leading 9 or 10 trips a year like I'm doing. I certainly started off with just a simple 2-hour walking tour in my local city. And then I grew to a half day, and then full days, and then weekend trips, and then outside. I was living in Southern California, and so I was bringing groups back to Chicago or going to Death Valley and Joshua Tree National Park. I highly recommend that you don't start out with 9 or 10 trips a year, but you kind of dip your toe in the water. But you can start out and the reason I say that, you can start out with this program. I'm not just trying to sell a program, but if this had been available when I started out 10 or 12 years ago, because I started out part-time probably 13 years ago, I could have jumped right into international trips because it was laid out for me. But because I didn't have a program like this, or a mentor, or someone to train me or show me how to do this at all, I figured it all out myself. I couldn't possibly have done this. But with this program, or I don't know if there's other ones out there, but if you had someone training you, you could absolutely start with a 10 or 12 day international trip, because now it's all laid out. You don't have to figure it out. I've made all the mistakes, and I want people to be able to benefit from that.
Yeah, you make it sound easy, but it sounds scary to me. and having something that could help me with some of these questions, because I listed down just a few questions I have as part of this, and I know you probably go through a lot of these questions in the webinar and in the future training. But there's a lot of questions I have, and we go them in just a minute.
Sure.
There's a question out in chat. He missed the intro, but wanted to know if you recommended any phone apps for traveling, apps for planning locations to shoot, etc.
Well, a good friend of mine has an app called Snap Guides, and that's Luka Senko. He's Slovenian, and that's Slovenia right there. That's Lake Bled, Slovenia, that you're seeing that picture of. Okay. That's also, that's Croatia actually, but he's got an app out called it's called Snap Guides, and so he's got photographers that have put together these location for like where to go to photograph specific destinations, and it's like one of the, I think it's user generated, but I don't know if it's like the public. He's got specific professional photographers that are. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yeah, your video froze, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I thought I froze. Yeah, okay. So
it's not too bad of a free. It could have been worse.
Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah. So he's got that, which is very good. So you might check that out. Okay. If I could tout my own app, I've got an app called My Shot Lists for Travel, and it's completely free. And the idea is how to bring back a well-rounded set of images from any destination. And I've got 52 categories in there. A lot of times we go for that low-hanging fruit, people, architecture, landscapes. But if you really want to tell the story of the place, really important to bring back a well-rounded set of images that really captures the essence of the place. There you go. That's it right there on iTunes. Yep. Unfortunately, it's only available on iOS devices, okay. iPod Touch, iPhone, iPad. It's not on any other platforms, but it's free. So the price is right. Yep. You can't lose trying it out. And I've got 52 categories in there that help you to get out of your comfort zone and away from just that low hanging fruit. So there's some examples there. Details, what people are wearing, interiors, night scenes, the underbelly, things that are going to tell the whole story of that place.
Okay. One thing you might want to do it might work to get your video going is just start and stop your video, but your audio is fine, so we can keep going. Okay, so if I'm someone who's considering this, there you go, video's back.
Okay.
If I'm someone who's thinking about starting this and I got a full-time job, because if I'm a photographer and I'm full-time photographer, then I have a little bit more freedom with my time. But what if I'm the weekend photographer? Could I do this as, I guess I'd have to have enough vacation time to plan one of these trips, but I would want to probably start off small.
Yeah, and I would recommend that. So maybe you do a weekend or an overnight, or you start going into 3 and 4 day weekends, which is what I started doing when I was in Southern California. I'd bring groups back to Chicago, my hometown, and it was kind of a dual purpose because it allowed me to travel free back to my home when I wanted to, but also I loved showing off Chicago. So you would, if you've got a full-time job, if you've got some vacation time, you may have to go into it if you start doing longer than weekend trips. But it's a great way to dip your toe in the water. You'll probably make a few mistakes, but if you follow the program, they shouldn't be anything too big or costly.
That might be a good idea. Whatever your home city is, wherever you are in the world, home city or near home city, is doing some weekend tours to build up your confidence and get yourself going.
For sure.
So what? Let me look at my list here. What do I need to? What things do I need to think about other than vacation time before I get started doing this? Any tips for what I need to consider?
Yeah, I mean, the secret to all of this, and I call this the pain in Spain. When I started leading trips, I didn't want to work with I wanted to put the trip together myself because I wanted to cut out the middleman. So the key to all of this is working with a local tour operator in the destination that can help you put the trip together. So I wanted to cut out the middleman, and so I said, okay, and I had an assistant at the time. I said, between the two of us, we're going to contact all the hotels, the guides that we need, the restaurants that we're going to go to, the transportation companies, the activities we're going to do. Well, when I started thinking about this just the other day, and I didn't even think about it when I was doing it, but it was like 36 different vendors that I needed to deal with. And Rebecca, who was helping me at the time, thank God I had her. But that's the mistake that people make, is they try to do this themselves because they want to cut out the middleman. And I can understand it because I did the same thing, but that's one of those huge mistakes. And it wasn't a costly mistake. It just cost me a ton of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which time is money. And if your time is worth anything, don't do that. That's rule number one. Don't do that. Work with someone in the destination. It's going to save you a ton of time, which of course is money, a lot of headaches. And then you're pretty much just dealing with one person who's got all those contacts. They know all those hotels and where to get the guides and what restaurants to go to. Now, the second key though is going there and doing a scouting trip. And one of the reasons I felt that I could put this trip to Spain together was because I'd been to Spain so many times before. And I felt like, okay, I know the place. I speak the language. I can do this. Well, even though I had those advantages, it didn't. And I sold 2 trips out after. So it worked out financially. It was just a big waste of time when I could have gone to one local tour operator that had all those contacts, had already made all those negotiated all those discounts and things like that. And they could give me advice with regards to, well, maybe you don't want to go around the country clockwise. You want to go counterclockwise for this reason, or you want to go at this time of year, or you don't want to go at that time of year because there's a festival, or, there's locusts, or, whatever. But they've got that information that you're probably not going to know.
That'd be awful if we showed up at locust season. Uh,
Be a hell of a photo op.
it would, yeah. Okay, so let's say I've done a few local ones in my hometown, and now I'm saying, I'm ready to expand, branch out, and go to a foreign country from wherever I am. What should I be thinking about as far as my first pick for a foreign country? Someplace I've maybe traveled for before myself, someplace that's not too far away. What and I guess when you're thinking, some places, depending on where you are in the world, seem more foreign to you than other places.
Yeah, well, I say pick a destination that you love. Why would you put together a trip that you're not interested in or don't have a passion about?
Okay.
Now, I can understand that it may be scary for some people to go to some more off the beaten path places. Maybe they consider Morocco or Vietnam, Cambodia, India really wild and exotic places, which they are to an extent. But there's obviously much more wild places than those.
Sure.
But you have to go with what you're comfortable with. And I think it's important, to go to a place that maybe you know already, but and for your first couple trips, because you've got that basis. But like I said, I knew Spain,
Right.
but I didn't know that part of the travel. So, but I loved Spain and I spoke the language. And so I figured that, that would be a wonderful place to bring a group to. And so I think it's important to go to a place that you're comfortable with as well, because, but the scouting part of it is where you go and you get even more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You do all you have all the experiences that you want your group to have. You go to all the restaurants, try them out. You try the different hotels. You meet the guides. Maybe you meet the tour operator themselves. You see how the transportation works. You're there. I typically go a year in advance of the actual trip because with photography, most of the time it's based on either a harvest or a season or a festival or some sort of activity that typically happens only once a year.
Right.
But depending on the kind of trip, you could do a foodie tour any time of year unless it's based on a particular food festival or something. But go there and learn the culture. And when I do a scouting trip's almost busier than the actual group trip because I'm seeing 2 or 3 times the amount of things. I'm having
Right.
those many more experiences than I'll actually include on the group trip. And so it's my job to put those pieces of the puzzle together that I think would make a nice trip, that provide variety, that flow well together, that are, make our time efficient traveling.
Yeah, on the surface, the scouting trip sounds like, oh, that sounds like a great vacation. But and you mentioned this before that the scouting trip, like you just said, is extremely busy time. You have to go meet all these people, take some of the tour buses and stuff you're going to go do. So you're working, you're getting to see some stuff, but you're still working, and that's the whole purpose of this trip, is to get an understanding of what you're going to do when you take the tour with your people, right?
Exactly. And I love the scouting part. It's fantastic because it's usually me and the local guides. And so I have more time. When I'm with the group, that's more sort of managing people. Although I'm teaching photography, I've got the local guide that's handling a lot of the more details of people checking in. Maybe they have an issue with their room or something. They manage the drivers, things like that. But that's because I've developed that relationship with them.
And when you go on the scouting trip, you having to pay those guides that you're traveling with, then, right? I mean, they're not doing that for free.
Yeah,
So you got to build that into your cost model.
absolutely. So that's what I teach in the course is how to do the scouting trip, because it's probably going to cost you money, and if it doesn't, it's going to cost you eventually,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm at a point where destinations are contacting me and saying, "Hey, come over and bring a group here, and we'll give you a free trip." Well, there's nothing free.
Right.
And eventually they're going to price that in when I bring the group back. So I will pay for it eventually. And there's another negative to that is that if something goes wrong, I feel like, well, I can't really complain.
Because it's free, yeah.
Because it's free. So I would prefer to pay for a scouting trip and do it the way I want and have control than to get it for free. But and I think when you start out, it's going to be difficult to get free trips. There are some. There's something called a FAM trip or a familiarization trip that destinations will put together, and they'll bring. But you typically have to be an influencer, like a big name travel blogger or a big name photographer who they think can really get the word out about the destination, has a real promise of bringing groups back.
Sure.
When you start out, you're probably not going to be in that position. But I now that I've been doing this for about 9 or 10 years, I've gotten over that hump, and the destinations are now approaching me, which is, it's a nice position to be in. But it doesn't mean that you can only do this after you're in that position, because I started out the same way as everyone else, with no following, no experience, anything.
So continue on the line of cost and everything. How do you work out pricing? And before you answer that, I should lead into this question first. How do I decide how many people are going to take on this tour, which may then lead into the question of pricing? You know, you don't want to start off taking 50, but you also don't want to take, one other. You need some kind of small group, I would imagine, to go on this trip.
Yeah, and that's really highly dependent on what kind of trip you're looking to lead. So with me, where I'm teaching photography, it needs to be a smaller group so that people feel like they're getting more of an intimate experience, that they can have actual access to me. Where if we're talking a 40 or 50 person tour, it's going to be virtually impossible for me to give everyone even a little bit of attention. So I found that 6 to 11 participants the 6 is enough to let me spread the common costs over a fair amount of people, so it keeps the trip cost down. But 11 is small enough that people will still get an intimate experience of feeling like they have access to me. Just depends on the kind of trip that you're going to lead. Maybe if you're not teaching, or you're doing some sort of a culinary trip or something, then you can probably handle more people. But you have to think about how many people you're comfortable managing. And what I like about the size of our groups too is it lets us get into smaller boutique hotels, more locals type restaurants. We get in smaller vehicles that allow us to get into more off the beaten path roads, and we can go down that gravel road and see what's down there, where with a huge bus you're going to be very limited.
Right. And that goes to the next question: is why should someone use a person like you or one of the people you're teaching versus just going there themselves and scouting around themselves? And I think you mentioned you said it with that last thing, because you'll be on that bus and not knowing to go down that road.
Right. And it goes back to that whole pain in Spain. I mean, you can go there and scout it on your own, but you're going to be a lot less efficient. It's not that expensive to work with a tour operator. Typically, when I work with a tour operator, they're almost always giving me the tour at cost, because they are, that's their investment in this trip, because I'm paying for it. So that's my investment. Their investment is maybe not making a profit on it, or a very small one, on the come that I'm going to be bringing a group back. But I say, don't be short-sighted and say, okay, well, I'm just going to cut out that middleman and I'm going to go scout it by myself. Well, you're going to make a ton of mistakes that are going to be costly, where the tour operator is going to help you to avoid those. And
also, I was asking about the person actually going on the tour. So the person that's hiring me to take them.
Oh, why? Excuse me. Why would they pay me to? Why would they come on one of my trips? Well, because
I know
they don't have to do anything.
You're a pro, but I'm just getting started. How do I convince people, hey, come with me?
Well, you have to have put together a pretty nice trip and packaged it well, and that doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, you of course have to do the scouting trip, have all those experiences, decide what you want to put together as far as the package goes of the trip, and then market it. So you want to have a pretty nice package and let people know what you're going to be teaching them, if anything. But the idea, I feel that my job is to make it as easy as possible for my clients to travel. And so I am sending them a lot of information in advance, frequently asked questions, all kinds of information about how the money system works, tipping guidelines, how the bathrooms work in some places, things like that you might not think about, medical information. So the more you can package and the more people, because now my people, they get on an airplane, they show up, they don't have to do anything else. They know that everything's laid out for them. And you have to just let people know that that's what you're doing, because you're going to do that for them. Even if you don't have the experience, you've got to have a good package that people are paying for.
You mentioned the bathroom situation, and that I didn't realize how big of a deal that might be until a friend of mine just got back from a trip. I think it was in China, and the bathroom was a hole in the floor. Mm-hmm. He dealt with it fine. His wife had a horrible time with it.
Yep.
And that would have been, I think it was a shock to them. They were not prepared for when they walked into the bathroom and saw that.
Well, that's two issues. So either they didn't do enough research themselves, if they went on their own, mm-hmm. or if they went with a tour company, the tour company did not set those expectations, which is really important. As the tour organizer, I need to let people know that there may be these squat toilets in the location. Mm-hmm. There may not be toilet paper. There may not be paper towels, things like that. So that's what I'm doing during the scouting trip, mm-hmm. is finding out those kinds of things so that I can prepare people. Then when they come to my website and they see, or I'm sending them advanced information, they're getting that information. And if it's not for them, then they're going to filter themselves out.
Right.
So setting expectations is probably rule number 3.
and really. I think that probably plays hugely into how the person walks away from the trip. They come back and say, trip was incredible. It was awesome, because they were prepared and knew what they were getting into, versus someone who wasn't prepared in that case, and coming back and saying, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known this. I'd never gone on that trip.
Yep. And so these people, if they weren't prepared and it wasn't for them, but they still had to go, and if they found it out there, mm-hmm. Probably the first thing they talk about is how bad the toilets are.
Well, that was the first photo he showed me when we were at lunch after he got back. But I will say that overall they loved the trip, so okay. It did not mess the trip up for him. But the first photo shows me is that. So that tells you something.
There you go. Yep.
So on pricing, how do I go about pricing? You're not, like you said, we're going to become a millionaire on this, but you do want to at least cover your costs and maybe even make a little from this. I mean, you have to make a living from it. And if you're wanting to make a living, you've got to charge more than your cost. Mm-hmm. What am I looking at as far as charging?
Yeah. So I have a part of the whole lesson is about pricing, and I give my pricing spreadsheet that I've developed over the years, and that's one of the most valuable tools that I give, is because this literally, I've developed this over years, and ran several trips where it was like, wait a minute, I forgot this major cost, and come home realizing that I didn't make quite as much money as I thought. Right. So that's something to be really aware of, is the what your expenses are, really knowing those expenses. And can you hear that?
Yeah. No.
Sorry about that.
I couldn't hear anything. I just hear you.
Okay, good, because there's something clicking in the background. Apologize. Okay. But knowing your expenses, really important. I give that pricing spreadsheet, and we go through a lot of different pricing scenarios. I've got a whole training where I show people how to use the spreadsheet. Even in the webinar, I talk about different scenarios, just example scenarios where maybe you just want to travel for free, so you're not going to charge anything in addition, or at least to start out. And that's, of course, going to keep the price of the trip to to the client down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to start. It's a good way to get experience. It's a good way to get the photographs that you need. Because during that scouting trip, you're typically just getting, the travel type images. But when you're on a trip with the group, you're actually getting images of your people having those experiences. You're able to get testimonials from them right in the destination. And I just break out my iPhone, and I've got this beautiful background, and I see one of my clients walking by and say, "Hey, Joe, would you mind if I get a quick testimonial from you?" And then I'll ask them to stand there, put them on that rule of thirds, one side, and then I've got this amazing background. Hey, tell us how you're enjoying the trip. And you could talk about how great you are all day long, but when someone else talks about how great you and the trip are, that has a lot of weight.
Right. You're building your marketing there too. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. So any tips on, let me ask you this. So as somebody who's planning this, I'm planning to take somebody I'm going to take them to the foreign country of Louisiana, because that's where I'm from. This is one where if you're an American, you passport's optional, but I'm going to take you there. What should I consider? What do I provide? Am I providing travel? The hotel, is all that included in the price, and is food on your own? And what all should I be planning for these people? I know you do a great job of having a lot of some free time for the people, but you also have planned stuff. So how do I balance me providing everything versus also giving them some freedom?
Well, the first answer is you can do whatever you want, but what I like to do, and again, we all need to create our own niche and have this bullet points of what our trips are like. And so I recommend that you do provide the hotels, because the more value you provide to people, the less they have to think about, the more they're going to pay you.
Sure.
So if you don't provide the hotels, you don't provide guides and local transportation and meals and stuff, you probably can't charge a whole lot. So I pretty much include everything but the flight to and from the destination and some meals. And I don't include all meals, because I like for people, and my people, the kind of people that come to my trips,
Mm-hmm.
they like to go out on their own. They don't want to feel like they have to be with the group 24/7. They're comfortable enough being in these destinations and going out as a single, or maybe they brought a friend or a spouse, or they befriend someone on the trip, or they go out in small groups, or they skip a meal, because no one's ever said that they've gone hungry on my trips. There's a lot of food. And so you may want to skip a meal, or you may want to go high end one night, or go street food, whatever. So that's what I do with my trips. I provide local guides, transportation, internal flights, everything but the flights there and back, because people are coming from all over the world.
Right.
They want to use particular airlines. They want to use miles. They want to fly first class, back of the bus, whatever. So let them do that. They want to arrive early, stay late. So that's just more of a headache than anything for me, and let them do it themselves.
Are you meeting them at the airport, or are you meeting them? Hey, our gathering point is at the hotel.
It's usually at the hotel, because people are coming at all different times. So I tell people very detailed information about when they need to be in the destination. So I say, try to make your flight arrive by noon on the first day of the trip, so that we can, plan for maybe a little delay. By the time you get your bags, you find the private transfer that we've provided for you. So I do provide private transfers for everyone. It's not a group transfer. Sometimes companies will provide a group transfer. So if you don't fly on the day of the trip, and you come in a day or two early or stay late, you don't get a transfer, so it's not included. By the time you get there, you check in, you unpack, you relax a little bit, and then at 7:00 we have a group meet and greet, and then we get to meet each other in person. Although I've already set up a private Facebook group for us, so that everyone can start to get to know each other months in advance. And we share information, books that we've read, documentaries that we've seen, photography and travel tips. And we have that meet and greet the first night, and then I lay out a lot of more expectations for people, and then we have a welcome dinner.
That first night must be amazing.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, other than the jet lag, it's fantastic.
That's true. That's true. And you mentioned months in advance. So how far in advance are you setting this up so people can book it, and how far in advance are people booking it, booking the tour?
Well, I'm working on the scouting trip probably 6 months in advance of the scouting trip. And so let's take Bulgaria. I'm going to Bulgaria in September, October to do a scouting trip. So I've been working on that scouting trip for about 6, 7 months. It doesn't mean I'm working 20, 12 hours a day on just that, but I need to contact the tour operator. I need to flesh out an itinerary with them, decide on everything like that. But then, I need to book their time, so I want to be on their calendar well in advance. And then I'll run that trip. I'll do the scouting trip in September, October. But like I was saying, I will typically do the actual trip a year later,
Right.
because when I'm there, I want to get the photographs that people can expect when they are there a year later.
When do you open it up for people to start booking that trip?
Well, by the time I get back and I flesh out what the actual itinerary is going to be, I go back and forth with the tour operator a few times and, say, I want to include this, I want to take this out, I want to change hotels, do this, that. That might take a month or so, just of back and forth. And then they give me pricing, and I've already got everything in place. So now that I've been doing this for a while,
Right.
I will take, I've got all my forms and everything in place, and I need to change the names, the dates, everything like that. And then I got the website ready to go. When I get that final pricing, boom, I can release it. So typically I will start marketing 10 to 11 months out.
Okay. You're thinking about just starting one of these. My first fear would be, okay, I'm going to open up to 6 to 11 people, and 3 people sign up. At that point, these 3 have signed up. They probably have paid their money. I'm just going to do the tour, and I guess I would lose money on that. Is that a fear? How does a beginner get past that?
No, it's a great question. And so I have this minimum of 6 people. So I tell the tour operator, price it to me so that if I get 6 people for this trip, I go free. And then I need to do my expenses and figure all that out. And I show people how to do that in the course so that you will still make money if you get those 6 people. Now, if I only got 4 or 5, then I would ask the tour operator, hey, can we still make this trip a go with 4 or 5 people? And they would probably say, well, we can, but now the price has gone up per person a certain amount. And then I just put that into my spreadsheet and I say, okay, can I still make money, or can I at least not lose money and go and get that experience, be with people that are on this trip, get those photographs, and just learn more and maybe get a free trip out of it instead of making money. Mm-hmm. Now, if only 2 or 3 people, then that's going to be more difficult. But I will never have people get their plane flights or I always say, do not make any non-refundable travel arrangements until I've given you the go ahead.
Okay.
And that means I've got a minimum amount of people.
How far out should someone set that minimum? It's going to have to be months out at least, right?
So I will typically have a deadline of about 3 or 4 months out.
Okay.
So I should know that we've got the trip as a go. There's times when it goes longer than that, and I need to extend that deadline, and we'll still get people. But it's never been a problem, but it could be. So you need to be aware of that.
Well, no, you have a great return rate with a lot of people coming back and going with you again. But I imagine this might be a bigger issue for someone when they're just getting started and haven't built up that name recognition or that client list.
Well, I never had that. I started out the same way. I didn't start out with any name or client list. We all start out with 0. Some people, maybe get into this that already have a following in some other area of their life, like they're, a big famous travel blogger or famous yoga instructor. And that's definitely a step up. So if you have already got a following and then you could just market to that following. So I always think about either a chef that owns a restaurant and they want to do culinary tours, and they've already got a client base, or you are a yoga instructor that maybe has a studio, or some sort of a list of clients, and you can put together a yoga retreat for your best 10 clients or whatever. So that helps. But I didn't have those things. I did start out small so that I could build that list. I did anything I could do to get in front of people that I thought might be interested in photography and travel. So that it does take some time to do that. But if you've already got a following, you're steps ahead.
Absolutely. I know of a number of photographers who have a large following who, if they offered something like this, they would have people wanting to go just because of the photographer. So, they already have a built-in audience that they could take with them.
Absolutely. And, the problem, though, is that when they start looking into what's involved, they start thinking, geez, I'm a photographer. I'm not a tour organizer. I don't want to have to. You start thinking about those 36 vendors that I dealt with for that Spain trip. People give up very quickly.
Sure.
And so that's why not everyone, it seems like everyone is doing this, but, leading photo tours or any kind of tour. But that's why not everyone is doing this, because there is work involved. But that's the kind of person that I think would be perfect for my course, because I show them exactly how to do it. And so you can be the photographer and still do the administrative part of it.
Well, doing it and doing it successfully are two different things. Anybody can start something. It's keeping it going and doing it successfully is the hard thing. So with that in mind, what any insight into what someone who's thinking about getting into this, whether it's the chef that you mentioned, or as the photographer, or as the yoga instructor, they're thinking about starting something like this. What should they be thinking on? What should I do to make sure my clients have a great time and want to rebook with me wherever I go next, or want to tell their friends to book with me? Any insight there?
In a few words, and I said it before, but set expectations. So give people what they've signed up for. Let them know exactly what they are in for, because you don't want someone signing up for one kind of trip and then get a different kind of trip. So be really upfront with people. I just recently actually came up with a formal set of FAQs, and it's really just based on all of the questions that I've received over the years and that I know people are asking. And that's exactly why they're called frequently asked questions. So I've accumulated those questions over the years, and I answer them in detail. If you go to my website, you'll see them there. And I just want to kind of get that out of the way. And I point people that are that are interested in my trips. I say, make sure you read our set of frequently asked questions, because I want to know that the trip is right for them.
Right.
I don't want to trick someone into coming on one of my trips and then realizing that it's not for them. And then I've got that maybe I made a little bit of money, but now this person's talking bad about the trip.
Or the vibe that they're sending while they're on the trip is not good either. Bad attitude's contagious. And, as we're talking here, I just was thinking, the getting started, you mentioned this before, do something in your hometown. Many of us may think, hometown, what is there to do here? But, you look at San Francisco and Chicago and New York and tons of other places around America, or London, different places around the world. While that may be an everyday thing for you, there's people all over the world who it's not. So if you're getting started and doing something in your hometown and bringing people from outside of town, you might already know it and be able to get started that way before you go somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's a place that you probably already know. I mean, that's how I said I started. I was living in Southern California, and I was starting to accumulate a list of clients, people that I've been working with, that I taught. And I didn't realize how many people that live in Southern California had never been to Chicago and wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, every person I brought, I never had one complaint. They loved the city, and it's just a great city. And so is Philadelphia, San Francisco, and New York, and all these other places. But if you've got an insight into that place, people will probably pay you to make it easy for them I don't like to hand hold people, but I do like to get them in front of cool and interesting stuff that they can photograph and make it easy for them. Um, One thing I did with my Chicago trip when I first started out is I was letting people arrange their own hotels as well. So I tell them just an area to stay in, because sometimes people had family and they want to stay with family. So I didn't want to charge them unnecessarily. So that was a way to take a little bit of the administration off of me. But yeah, that's a great thing to do. And I think also, especially with photography, because if you're going to be teaching photography, you better know photography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You better be a good teacher. Be patient. So get out there. And I started out just sitting across the table from some woman that wanted to learn how to use her digital camera, and there was hardly even any photography going on, but I walked them through the camera, and I learned many different cameras myself. That came in very handy when I was, actually going with a group and teaching 8 or 10 people, and they all had 8 or 10 different cameras. So you need to learn about photography, number one, and be able to teach it, or whatever your special interest is that you are there to teach. But like I said, you don't have to, because if you don't feel comfortable, why not just put together professional photographers in the destination?
Oh, that's a good idea.
You could find them all over the place, very easy. And so you have an interest in photography. Maybe you want to learn more photography. Well, put together, be that aggregator of experts in the destination, and you can find photographers all over the world that are willing to do a 2 or 4 hour session with you and your group. And
yeah,
I think that's
awesome.
a great way to do it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I know that, if I was booking a tour like this, I would want to make sure that we're going to do something like that, or we're going to have, go to a place that I wouldn't have gone as just me going there myself. They're not going to take me to McDonald's. I'm going to go to some place that's, some cultural food, a place that I might not have found on my own, maybe one I did, but somebody's going to help me, guide me through the city and show me a few things that I have not been able to see before. By myself.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did with Chicago. I'm from Chicago, of course. I owned restaurants. I grew up in the restaurant business. So when I brought groups back here, I would night number one, we would go to Billy Goat Tavern, which is famous from Saturday Night Live and Chiboga Chiboga, no Pepsi Coke, right?
Yeah.
Then we'd go to Lou Malnati's Deep Dish Pizza. We would go to have a Chicago hot dog. Those kinds of things that, if I'm coming to a new city, I want to try, Philly cheesesteak there in Philadelphia, whatever is, dirty water hot dog in New York, or some thin sliced pizza, even though Chicago's deep dish is much better.
And Gary is out in chat, and he said this before you said anything. He was born and raised in Philly. And then right after that, you mentioned the Philly cheesesteak. So we showed it before. I'm going to show it here again. If you're interested in getting started with something like this, you have recently started this this resource for people. And I'm showing the website now, which is tourorganizertraining.com. And go there. I have the link in the show notes too. You can go there and sign up for the next free webinar, right?
That's right. It's August 17th at 8 p.m. Central Time in the U.S., and it's live. And so people can go there, and it's about an hour and a half. And I talk a little bit more about myself so that people feel comfortable with my qualifications for teaching this. And then I walk through those 7 steps of organizing and leading a highly successful trip. And, and that leads into the online course if people want to take it further.
Right. So you did one today, and the next one, August 17th. Are these, how far out do you have these planned? Or is the 17th one the last one for a while?
Well, I'm going to be traveling, like I think we were talking before I came on, but I am absolutely going to be doing these probably at least once every couple weeks from wherever I am in the world, and I can get internet access. I'll be doing this. So people, I'd recommend that you get on the August 17th one if you have that date available. put it on your calendar right now. I'm not sure when the next one will be, because I will be heading to Romania, Bulgaria, and Ireland very soon after that. And you never know about internet access and things like that.
Gary in chat talking about your dirty water hot dogs. He says they have just the right amount of bacteria to make them great.
That extra little flavor, right?
Yeah. And then if I'm interested in booking a tour with you, I go to photoenrichment.com, and right there on the homepage, right there, the first thing, see our upcoming tours.
Yep. Or you can hover over the word tours, and there's a drop down.
Click
out of that.
Let me get rid of that, because remember, I am streaming. So any slowness you see on Ralph's site could be because I'm streaming and doing everything.
Hover over the word tours up there.
Tours. Here we go. Current
tours.
And
then there you go. So that's a drop down of all our trips coming up, and you click on those, and it's got all the information there, and you can request more information. And so I've got trips coming up to Romania, India, Cambodia, Vietnam, Morocco, Cuba, and Spain. Those are the ones that I can think of. Next, I've also got Copper Canyon, Mexico.
Yeah, I remember your video of that one. That was awesome.
Love Copper Canyon. Bigger and deeper than the Grand Canyon. One of the great train rides right through it. Yep. Romania is one of my new favorite countries. It's just fascinating, but it's got it's like a step back in time. You see this little girl and these families that are out there actually.
I just clicked away from it. Sorry.
That's okay. And people that are harvesting hay at that time of year. So that's why we go. So Tarahumara Indians, they live in caves and cliff overhangs till this day. You can see the people that I've given pictures to. I bring pictures back for people. And so just wonderful places that also have a good tourist infrastructure. So I'm beyond, staying in hostels and 1 and 2 star places. So I like 3, 4, even 5-star hotels for my people, nice boutique hotels. My criteria is it's got to be safe, it's got to be clean, and it's got to be well located. And so we stay at really wonderful hotels, and typically boutique hotels that are. Oh, is that the Copper Canyon video?
Yeah, I'm just going to let that play as we talk.
Sure.
I know we played it before, but we'll play it here again. You're not going to be able to hear it if you're watching, so we're just going to kind of let it play as we talk. Yeah.
If I could just interrupt, or we got to go?
No.
Okay, so that Copper Canyon where you see me talking right now, that was filmed in 2011, about 6 years ago, when I was there to photograph for the cultural and travel images for a cookbook. And I just got the cookbook about 2 months ago. And this is 6 years ago that we actually ran that trip. So it was a 40 locations throughout Mexico, 35-day assignment. And I was doing the travel images for the cookbook. Someone else was doing the plated food photography in a studio in Australia, actually. And but I finally got this cookbook. It's a 500-page cookbook. And it was really cool to actually see my work in this book. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Charles Bush out in chat says that, Mike, you can lead a group to Old Car City. Lots of walking. He says lots of walking, so win-win. I've been trying to do a lot more walking lately, and that's what he's talking. That's what he's talking about. Trying to get in better shape. Because one of the things with these tours, you want to get out, you want to get walking, and you want to see the sights. And I need to get in better shape to be doing some of that stuff. And of course, Charles, first I'd have to actually visit Old Car City to give someone else a tour of it. But
scout it out.
Yeah, I do need to go scout it out. Who knows? My kids. I was mentioning this to Ralph in the pre-show. My youngest son in 2 days moves off to college, so I may be having a lot more freedom coming up here soon.
There you go. Wonderful.
Well, Ralph, that's a good ending, because we are past the hour. And remember August 17th? Go to Ralph's. Yeah, August 17th. Go to Ralph's site, sign up for that, and make that, and see if it's something you're interested in. It sounds incredible. And if you look at Ralph's site, the photoenrichment.com, and all the places he's been and all the things he offers, it's an exciting life. It is a lot of work. It's not just you going on vacation 9 months out of the year. It is a lot of work, but it looks like you have a great amount of fun doing it.
It's not a vacation, but it's the best job in the world. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else. And if people go to my photoenrichment.com website, if they register for the email list, they get a free copy of my ebook, 101 Tips for Developing Your Photographic Eye and More. I'd love it if people went there and registered for the email list. But also the tour organizer training, something I'm really excited about. So I really appreciate you having me on the show, Mike. And this is great, really wonderful. And thanks for a lot of really great questions.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. Where can I find the what do you call it, the newsletter?
The pop up for I think you clicked away from it earlier,
okay.
But when you first come to the website, it'll pop up.
I don't know if it'll want to refresh, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
When you first
it'll be a pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't get it, just people can email me, Ralph@photoenrichment.com, and we'll make sure that you get it.
Awesome. Well, Ralph, thanks for coming on again. I will have this out before August 17th. It'll be this raw version will be available on YouTube as soon as we're done, and then the edited version will be out, in a few days. I am moving my son in Thursday or Friday, whatever it is. So best, by Saturday for sure. If you came in late, like I know Gary came in late, I recorded this for you so you can get the whole show either through YouTube or through Vimeo, Stitcher. Well, let me go through the list. Hold on, I did the list so I can do this. If you want the video, which I always recommend the video, iTunes, YouTube, or Vimeo. And then the audio, and I know we do have a lot of audio listeners, and I don't apologize enough to you guys because I know I often get in the mode of just video, and I assume we're all looking at the same photos and everything, but I know a lot of people listen to the show rather than watch it. Maybe you're driving into work or whatever, but if you want to get the audio version, we're on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podomatic, Podbean, and Google Play Music, and I'm sure many other places as far as the subscribing on your mobile app or whatever you want to do. Don't forget to join one of our photo challenges, photo contests, I should say. Let me go over to, where is this at? I'll show you guys here. If you go over to either one of our main groups on Facebook, the JPEG to RAW group or the beginners group, the album for the month is posted at the top. You can enter that way, or if you want to come in and you don't want to do that, you want to enter through our website, just go up to photo contest entry, and then you have either the main group or the beginners group. Click that, and you can do it right from our website if you want to enter that way. Also, we have this podcast event, so if you wanted to, like Gary, who showed up late, he needed a reminder of the show. He could have come down here. This show's already happened, so it's not up here anymore. I'll go to previous events. And
Back to the Future.
And so you would have seen this one, Ralph. You could click on that, come down here to the bottom and add it to your Google Calendar or your iCal, which I guess is Apple Calendar. Mm-hmm. And you could have done that, and that would have given you a reminder that the show's coming up. So look over here under jpegtoraw.com/events for all our upcoming events. So you can do the same thing for the photo contest. Get an alert on when the contest is ending so you know when to put your photo in. And I mentioned earlier, Tim is out tonight. He'll be out next week. He is traveling with the family. So no show next week. But then the week after, we'll have show number 200. We're not going to do a big look back or anything like that because no one wants to see all that. We'll do something. But come back out here in 2 weeks. And until then, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
So long.